What is going on, everyone? This is Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. And here in today's episode, we are going to take a look back in time to our 2020 NFL mock draft and see how it aged over time. And also, we're going to go around the hoop and talk about the new NBA playing game structure and share our thoughts on that. And now, let me introduce you guys to the rest of the crew.
And what is going on, guys? It is Connor, the co-host with the most, and I'm excited to look back on the 2020 mock draft 2.0. There was some trades that Zach and I made that were pretty interesting. Not all of them worked out exactly very well, but it'd be interesting to look back and see how we did, and if the teams made good picks or what happened there. And I'm also excited. This isn't related to the podcast, but I have a new picture since my Hurricanes won their division for the first time in 15 years. So I had to get that up there. But I'm excited to talk about that and talk about the prospect of the Hornets maybe making the playoffs or not.
What's up, guys? It's Nate here. We were looking over the our last year's mock draft results before the show, and there are definitely some interesting moves and selections there. So it'll be fun to go back through that and, like Connor said, see what we got right and wrong, and hopefully our takes from this year are going to be a little bit closer when we hope maybe do this episode again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we just did our mock 2.0 a couple episodes ago, so next year around this time we'll be looking back on that. And I have a feeling, Trevor Lawrence, like, no matter what he does, it's going to be like, yeah, that's a no-brainer pick still. Like, nobody's going to be mad about not taking him number one. But the others definitely, like Justin Fields at 2 that I had, that could be a controversial one.
Well, also, we had a lot more trades in the one this year than we did in the one last time. So
Yeah. So let's get things started off here. We'll kind of just break these down, I guess, 5 at a time to start out with, and then talk about them in order. So let me just go ahead and tell you guys. So the first 5 picks here, we had a trade actually between the number 2 and number 1. So if you don't remember, the Bengals had the number 1 overall pick and the Washington football team had the number 2 overall pick. And we did a trade where myself was picking for the football team. I traded up to number 1. So I took over number 1 pick. And I gave up a 2021 first-round pick, which ended up being like pick 21 or something like that.
Yeah, 19.
Yeah. And then a 4th-round pick that year. And then in that trade, I selected Joe Burrow to the Washington football team. And then Connor, who was the one making the trade for the Bengals' point of view, he drafted Tua Tagovailoa. And then at pick 3, Nate had the pick for the Detroit Lions and took Chase Young. And then we had another trade where the Jaguars traded up to number 4. Yeah, get this, guys. Connor, as the Jaguars, traded up to number 4 to draft Jeff Okudah. And in that trade, he gave up a 2021 Jacksonville first-round pick, not the Rams first-round pick, the Jaguars first-round pick, and a 2020 fifth-round pick to get Jeff Okudah. So we'll talk about that. And then
that
also
2021 first was the number 1 overall pick.
Yep. Everybody knows that happened. And then 5th overall, Connor was picking for the Dolphins and took Justin Herbert. So that's a lot to go through in the top 5 here. We'll start with the first one here. The Burrow to the football team, and then Tua goes to the Bengals. Obviously, I feel like the football team came out ahead on this trade. And man, just imagine if they had Burrow, like if the Washington football team had Joe Burrow as their quarterback, the NFC East last year wouldn't have been as big of a joke. It still would have been a joke, but I feel like they would have had a couple more wins. They've got a better offensive line, better run game, I think, better defense than the Bengals. I really feel like Washington could have won a couple more games and maybe made that playoff game interesting. So, Connor, looking back on this, since from my point of view, making this trade, I'm going to rate it an A because I just gave up 1 first-round pick to move up and get the best quarterback from the draft. You end up getting Tua to the Bengals. What would you grade this trade for yourself?
I'd probably give this trade a C+, I think, because, I mean, we saw how Burrow played with the Bengals. Like, he was really good, obviously, and then got hurt. But even with Burrow under center, like, the Bengals still couldn't make too much headway, and they're going to make even less headway with Tua under center. I mean, obviously they still don't have the offensive line. They still didn't have the weapons and whatnot. I mean, well, they had weapons, but they still didn't have the offensive line, which was the main thing. The Bengals still didn't have the defense. Like, it would have just been worse for the Bengals, honestly. Like, I think in this scenario, like, I don't know if they would have gotten the number 1 overall pick, but like in this scenario, I think they would have been fighting with the Jets and the Jaguars for it. Like, we knew that the Bengals were going to be bad last year, but there wasn't ever really any point where we were like, oh, the Bengals, like, they're going to get the first overall pick. It was always between the Jets and the Jaguars. But I think the Bengals would have entered that conversation had this been the way around. And also, grading it like you said for the football team, like, they gave up their first round pick, but it was only pick 19. It's not like which. In hindsight, it could have been
we
higher.
thought that pick was going to be a lot better. I remember.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it could, we thought that the football team was going to be worse, but in hindsight, they, even if they had Burrow, like, that could have been pick, 23, 24, like, so the Bengals really wouldn't have gotten much out of that. So I rate this as a massive win for the football team. And like I said, I'd probably give the Bengals a C+, given that they would have been better off, honestly, here taking Chase Young instead of taking Tua, given how he performed, or taking Herbert. But I don't think anyone really, they didn't grasp that yet at that point. So I think they would have been better off taking Chase Young at this point.
Yeah, and then at number 3, the Lions, they're like, 2 trades right above them, a trade below them, but they stand still at number 3. And Nate, you had them taking Chase Young. I feel like a no-brainer spot for the Lions to do. Take the best defensive player from the draft, and he would have been a lot better for them than Jeff Okudah, who is their actual first-round pick at pick number 3. So, Nate, I'll ask you this question because Herbert's still on the board here, and I know Connor and I have had debates like this. If this had been reality and you know what you know now, would you have taken Chase Young or would you have taken Herbert for the Lions? Knowing that you would trade Stafford after the season. So you would have Herbert, but he wouldn't have played his rookie year. Would you have still picked Herbert or taken Young?
Yeah, so that's kind of a tricky one there. I feel like obviously if they knew that they were going to get rid of Matt Stafford after last season, they knew that Herbert was going to be, probably, either the best or tied with Burrow as the best rookie quarterback in the class, then it would be a tough thing to pass up. But I think just looking at the Lions roster as a whole, I still feel like Young would be the better value with that pick, just because he's a defensive end. You saw how he played in Washington as a rookie. He's got crazy talent and upside, and it's like he can produce really anywhere. Put him on any of the 32 teams, and he's gonna go out and get sacks and make an impact. And it's like Herbert. I feel like obviously the Chargers aren't an amazing team, but he does have guys like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, Austin Eckler at his disposal, whereas in Detroit, it's like he doesn't have those same kind of weapons, and he would still be a good quarterback, and I think he'd be better than Jared Goff as being their quarterback for the future, but I feel like it'd be hard to say that he'd have had the same success if he was the guy in Detroit rather than LA. So I think Young would still be the better value in that spot personally, but really can't go wrong with either of those, I guess.
Yeah. And then that moves us to number 4 here, which is where that big the trade happened. So the Jaguars traded the 4 in our mock draft to take Okudah, and as a part of that trade, the Giants, who originally were at pick 4, they get the number 1 overall pick in 2021 and a 5th rounder. And of course, the Jaguars ended up taking CJ Henderson, another corner. I remember, corner was a huge need for the team at this point in time. So Connor, talk us through the Okudah pick here for the Jaguars. What would they have done differently? And just This one aged badly, man.
Definitely. I mean, at the time, it definitely seemed like the correct decision. I mean, like you said, corner was a huge, huge need for them, and Okuda was supposed to be, I mean, he could still turn out to be something really good, but obviously had a very disappointing rookie season. It seems like all these corners that got taken in the first round all had like bad rookie seasons. Like even like Okuda had a bad one. Henderson had like a really good first game against Indy, and then like he trailed off. AJ Terrell had a really bad first season. Like all these corners didn't perform well. So, like I said, looking back, it wasn't good. I guess what you do differently in this spot. I mean, if I'm the Jaguars at this point, I take Justin Herbert. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're going by that, what happened above them, Burrow to a Young, like then I would take Justin Herbert because you don't really need. I mean, we found out that again that was the biggest need for them. They weren't as committed to Gardner Minshew as we thought, and they could have taken Justin Herbert. Obviously, they could have taken someone like Derek Brown or Isaiah Simmons, but it would have been interesting to see if they had taken Isaiah Simmons because I know, I know we're going to get to him in a second, but I know the biggest thing that hampered him this year was the fact that the Cardinals just didn't know how to use him properly. So, I'd be interested to see if the Jaguars would have known how to use him, and that would have obviously bolstered their defense. But it makes sense to me in this spot that obviously, especially since you're not going to have the number one overall pick now, like you have to get Herbert.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the Giants ended up with pick 10, right?
Pick 9
or pick 11. Well, in the,
you're talking about in the
this year's draft. Yeah, they ended up with pick 11. So, moving up, and so they have 1 and 11. The Jaguars wouldn't have picked until 25 with the Rams pick. So
the Giants would have taken Trevor Lawrence too, like no doubt.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna say they would have helped Daniel Jones. Like no,
they
would have taken Trevor Lawrence.
There is no way they would have taken like Kyle Pitts or someone like that. Like no, they would have taken Lawrence, and then they would have gone out and gotten the weapons at pick 11, or traded down to get Tony like they did. So yeah. Terrible thing for the Jaguars, but at least they could have salvaged something here with Herbert if we had to do this again.
yeah. It's almost like we're doing it again. Okay, so then at pick number 5, speaking of Herbert, he goes to the Dolphins. This was picked by Connor. So Connor picked he picked 2 of the quarterbacks here in the top 5. So Herbert going 5 to the Dolphins. I feel like the Dolphins definitely would have rather had Herbert than Tua right now. It's I'm not saying Tua is going to be a bust, Dolphins fans, but if you could pick between the two, you'd want Herbert based on what you saw. Offensive Rookie of the Year, obviously. So
broke a lot of records.
He was sensational, and with that team that they had, they could be competing for a Super Bowl. Honestly, this year they would be legit contenders.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
if you had
agree.
a proven quarterback like Herbert ended up, proving.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been any of this dance between Fitzpatrick and Tua. Herbert would have taken the starting job. Is what would have happened. So like you said, with the team they had, a team that missed out on the playoffs by a tiebreaker. Any team like that, it's going to massively improve their chances. So this is a big win for the Dolphins. If this would have actually happened, it would have been a big, big win for them.
And then at pick 6, let's go 6 through 10. This is for the Chargers. Nate had them taking Isaiah Simmons. And then at pick 7, the Carolina Panthers, Nate had them picking Derek Brown. I had the Cardinals at 8 taking Jedrick Wills. And then at pick 9, as a part of the trade, the Giants picking Andrew Thomas, who they actually ended up doing at pick 4 in real life. And then at pick 10, the Browns nag Tristan Wirfs, the tackle, picked by Connor. So, let's get to Isaiah Simmons first here at 6 to the Chargers. Nate, you had them picking Simmons. He definitely had a disappointing rookie season. Everybody had huge expectations for him. They thought he would be a revolutionary player playing all these different positions. In my opinion, though, the problem with the Cardinals and Simmons, and I wonder if the Chargers, you can answer if you think the Chargers would have done it differently, is they never really established him at doing one thing. I think they should have started him out at linebacker and played him until he was fully comfortable at linebacker, and then you can expand out from outward. But it seemed like they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have a plan for him, and for the Chargers here at pick 6, do you still like this, or knowing how the offensive lineman did, do you think that taking an offensive lineman would have been better?
Yeah, so I think looking back, I definitely think the offensive lineman would have been a better pick for the value there. I think Simmons, I think he still has huge upside, and I agree that the Cardinals could have probably used him better. But I mean, I think that if he would have, like you said, if he would have just been in one role to start his career, he would have had a better rookie season. He'd probably in better shape going forward. But I feel like looking back, I think knowing that the O linemen that were selected after him performed so well, I think that would have been a better pickup for the Chargers.
Yeah. Pick 7, let's move things along here. The Carolina Panthers, they take Derek Brown in this mock draft, and they actually did that in real life too. That was one, like, all the mock drafts had them taking Derek Brown. I think he played solid. There's nothing glaringly wrong about this pick, in my opinion.
No reason for them to change it.
Yeah, no reason for them really to change it. He should be a good player. And then we have the Cardinals. This is a change for sure. They take offensive line here, Jedrick Wills. I had them taking him at pick 8. In real life, they took Simmons. I think this would have been a lot better pick for the Cardinals. You get a protection piece for Kyler Murray, and Wills ended up being, a lot of these offensive linemen in the first round did really well, especially the tackles at the top. And so Wills would have been fine for them. I feel like he would have been a really solid tackle for them. And then at pick 9, and we have another tackle going off the board. The Giants taking Andrew Thomas. This was as a part of that trade that we talked about earlier. This is who they also took in real life. So our mock draft had some accuracy to it, at least for the team's sake. So because also we had so with Thomas here, I still don't think Thomas is a bust, but he's like the Tua of the offensive linemen, in my opinion. It's like he played bad at the start of the season. He got better, but both Wirfs and Becton would have been better picks for the Giants here. So I'll grade my pick as like a D, just because instantly the other guys would have been a lot better than Thomas was. And then to round the top 10 out, we had Wirfs going to the Browns. In real life, they took Wills, so not too big of a difference here. But
like a very, very slight improvement. Basically, it was like when you took the tackles from last year, it was like you had Wirfs and Wills were the top 2. Like most people kind of generally agreed that Wirfs was slightly better, but obviously Wills was really good too, because you looked at the Browns' offensive line was great. And then
Wills played left tackle, whereas Wirfs was right tackle.
So Wills had to deal with pass rushing and everything for more often. So those were pretty interchangeable, with maybe a slight edge to Wirfs, and then Becton was the consensus third best, and then obviously Thomas. So the Browns don't lose anything here. I mean, it would have changed something, obviously, because like you said, Wills is a left tackle and Wirfs is a right tackle, but I mean, that offensive line would have still been great. So I don't think it changes much.
Yeah, the Browns basically stayed the same. And then this is where things get interesting. Pick 11 for the New York Jets. Nate had them taking CeeDee Lamb instead of Mekhi Becton, who is the real pick here. And in our mock draft, Becton went a couple picks later. So I'll ask Nate this. If you were to go back, Nate, would you have still picked Lamb, or would you have done Becton, who they did in real life, or somebody else?
Yeah, going back, I thought at that time I wasn't really sold on any of the O linemen. I really just hadn't watched enough tape or games, I feel like, on those guys. So, but I knew that CeeDee Lamb was going to be a stud, and he was pretty good for the Cowboys. But I think they're picking Becton probably would have been a better immediate solution for the Jets, just because the way Sam Darnold played and all the other issues with their offense, like nobody would have been getting CeeDee Lamb the ball. anyways. So it's like, we won't be talking about him as an impact rookie right now, if he had been in New York, because this would have been a bad fit for him. So I think it definitely should have gone with the O lineman there.
Yeah, that's fair. And then speaking of receivers, I have at pick 12 for the Raiders. I had the Raiders taking Jerry Jeudy, and of course they took Henry Ruggs, the surprising pick in real life. And both of these guys, Jeudy and Ruggs, were disappointments, but I still really like Judy's potential more. He had a drop issue for sure, but I still think his route running is very good, and I think he'll get better. He did have to deal with Drew Lock and Blake Bortles and that mess of quarterbacks in Denver.
That wide receiver that stepped in to play quarterback at that
one
point.
Yeah, that guy. So going to Derek Carr would have been a lot better for Judy's sake. And the Raiders, they still needed receiving help for sure at this point in time. They had a true need for receiver. I just think they took the wrong one with Ruggs. And there were a lot of other good ones here, like later down the board, Justin Jefferson. Obviously, like you could argue he could have gone to any of the teams above us, also just on his production alone, not necessarily need, but production wise, Jefferson would have been better. A lot of guys would have been better than Judy, so it's a C pick for me, in my opinion. And then at pick 13 for the Buccaneers, this is another pick we got right.
The Niners.
Oh, sorry, the Niners. I'm getting ahead of myself here. The Niners, Connor had them taking Javon Kinlaw, and that's who they took in real life. So I think Kinlaw kind of got lost last year. I don't know if he was hurt or not, but you never really heard anything about him. Is this a bad pick, you think?
Well, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to judge. Like, I mean, I know the 49ers have another pick on this later, but like it's kind of hard to judge any of their picks just because of the fact that like so many of their people were hurt last year that it's just kind of like, well, I get, you can make an argument that like, oh, maybe they should have taken, Mekhi Becton, or maybe they should have taken like this guy, or maybe they should have taken Jefferson. Like, who knows? Like, it's hard. I mean, I don't see any reason for them to not take Kinlaw here just because, that was the need. They needed defensive tackle. But, who's to say, like, what could have happened if they stayed healthy? And like I said, that maybe that's why he got lost because, defensive tackles already aren't big stat putter-uppers. And then especially when, Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead are out for the season, like, you're going to start drawing more attention there from the offensive line since they don't have to worry about those guys. So it's one of those things like for Javon Kinlaw, I wouldn't look too much into his rookie season. Next year is going to be really the key. Like, all right, was this a good pick or not? Because I feel like we can't really judge that yet.
Yeah, I agree. There could be players that didn't play well or were hurt that end up next year balling out. We see it all the time. It takes a year development. Now to the Buccaneers at pick 14, the eventual Super Bowl champions. I had them taking Mekhi Becton in this draft. They obviously ended up with Wirfs. It's tough to say if that downgrade from Wirfs to Becton would have. I don't think it would have affected their Super Bowl chances. Becton was still very good. So the need stays the same, and also one of the better players is still there for them in Becton. And then going to the Broncos at pick number 15. This is where Ruggs goes, and this is Nate's pick here. So this is Nate. This is one they took Judy in real life. So you have them taking Ruggs. I think this Ruggs was the worst of the receiver group at the high end in the draft. How do you like this a year later, Nate? This pick?
Yeah, I think that Jerry Jeudy definitely worked out better for the Broncos than Henry Ruggs would have. I think last year I definitely knew they needed a receiver to try and help Drew Lock, and Jeudy went off the board where we all expected him to the Raiders and didn't fall to the Broncos like he did in real life. So I think Broncos fans would be happy that things didn't go according to our mock draft last year.
Always got to thank the Raiders, they always got to do something out of the box.
Yeah,
right.
They do. Yeah, this is looking down the list too. We'll get to the Raiders' other pick. That's interesting. Pick 16 here, the Falcons. They take C.J. Henderson. This was my pick here. Nate, or no, not Nate. The real draft had them taking A.J. Terrell, which I remember on draft night. That was a shock. That was a big. We
That's
were
a
all like,
reach.
"Wow, that was a reach." He ended up playing. Terrell was okay, I feel like, but I had them taking Henderson. I feel like Henderson definitely didn't perform as well as everyone would have liked, but with corners, it seems to always take them a year to get used to the NFL, and the NFL receivers are so good these days. Like, feels like every team has like a receiver that's really good. And Henderson was on a terrible defense. Obviously, he had no other secondary help at all. Um, Kind of a bad situation for him in Jacksonville, and he got hurt as well too. Going to the Falcons, I don't think things really change much for the Falcons. I mean, they still have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. He doesn't make them a whole lot better. I don't love the pick just because of the guys that were still left on the board. There would have been better picks for him, but
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you think it would have been better for them to take like Caleb on Chason or Patrick Queen here or something like that?
yeah, I think Queen would have been better. I think some of the receivers, if Jefferson goes up higher, Higgins goes up higher, maybe one of those receivers falls to them in real life if they were redoing this. But yeah, there would have been better picks for him, I feel like, but it's not the worst pick in the world. And also, two guys not even showing up on here that ended up being picked in the second round, like Antoine Winfield Jr. He would have been a better pick, I think. So
Absolutely, a safety, against someone
they
like
need
that.
it. So at pick 17 here, this is a controversial one. It was at the time, and it was now. That I feel like Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay would be a lot happier if this mock draft happened, and that's because Connor took Jordan Love, the quarterback, to the Dallas Cowboys. So the real interesting thing about this is Dak gets hurt. What if Love comes in and we still don't know how Love is going to be? What if he does really well and then Dak Prescott is a free agent and is not on the Cowboys anymore? Just like this would have been so crazy because Dak ended up actually getting hurt. Love would have played. We would have known. So talk us through that and the fallout of this pick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know the reason why I made that pick was because honestly, I did not expect at the time, I didn't expect the Cowboys were going to re-sign Dak Prescott because I was thinking in my head, I was like, it's too much money. Like the rest of their team's going to be trash, which I mean, honestly, I think that's going to be what's going to happen now. They went out and gave Dak this massive, massive contract, and it's like, I don't actually know the statistic, but I'm willing to bet somewhere around like 70% of their salary cap is going to like Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, and DeMarcus Lawrence. And it's like, I mean, I know we're not doing previews or anything for next season, but honestly, like I think the Cowboys are going to be trash again next year because like you're spending all your money on this. So yeah, it would have been really interesting though to see because I mean, especially like you said, if Dak had hit the open market, like oof, all these quarterback needy teams, like you had, the Washington football team, you had the Bears, you had the Broncos, like it would have been real interesting to see where he ended up because, yeah, I honestly think if Jordan Love had come in and played well, they wouldn't have re-signed Dak because it's like, okay, again, invest in other areas of your team. It's what the Patriots have been so good at for so long. Tom Brady never commanded a $40 million a year salary because he knew that, all right, we need to invest in other parts of the team. So, I will say, I guess if I had to think about it, if they don't take Jordan Love here, let's say, for some reason we knew he was already going to be a bust or whatever, there's other options for them here. I mean, obviously, they got CeeDee Lamb in real life, but in this mock, Justin Jefferson's still on the board. So, they could have easily gotten, that third receiver already still. They could have gotten more edge rush help with Chason. They could have gotten Patrick Queen. We saw they drafted Micah Parsons this year. Like that would have solved that problem. So, a lot of options here for the Cowboys at this spot. But, Jordan Love, like you said, we still don't know what what he is. But yeah, you're right. Aaron Rodgers would be a much happier man right now if it wasn't
Yeah,
for that.
Somewhere there's like an alternate reality. I don't know if you guys believe in that or not, but there's an alternate universe where Jordan Love's on the Cowboys, Aaron Rodgers signed an extension in Green Bay. Man, things are totally different there.
Who
Okay.
knows? Who knows? Maybe they actually went out and got him another receiver, and the Packers could compete.
Yeah. And the Giants get Trevor Lawrence, and oh my God. Okay, pick 18 here. The Dolphins, their second first round pick. Nate had them taking Chase on here. In real life, they took Austin Jackson, a tackle.
Oof.
So Nate, Chase on, he really disappeared for the Jaguars. I think it was similar to the Simmons thing where they handled it badly. So speak on this pick, and if you think Chase on as a player is a bust, as a lot of Jags fans think he is, or do you think in Miami he would have been used differently and been better?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a little bit early to say he's a bust just after 1 year, but he did disappear, like you said. I thought coming into the league he had showed a lot more promise and potential than what he's shown so far with the Jags. I don't know if things would have been different for him with the Dolphins. I think honestly Jacksonville on paper should have been an even better situation because he was coming into a roster that already had Josh Allen opposite of him. So you would have thought that having a talented guy like that on the other side to take away attention and kind of coach him up and show him how to be a professional would have helped, but looks like it hasn't panned out quite yet. So I think he probably might have even been worse with the Dolphins. So I think overall wouldn't have been a good pick for the Dolphins, and I think it still worked out for the Jags. I think hopefully he can take a step forward and start to put some of that potential into action, but not really a great selection for either of those teams.
Yeah. Pick 19 here. So another team with a first round pick, the Raiders. Nate, you had them taking T. Higgins, and real life Dick took Damon Arnett. Everyone was like, who? So you had them going receiver. I remember this was interesting at the time. Higgins would have been better, or I guess Judy and Higgins. That would have been an interesting combination to have. What do you think about Higgins a year later?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think back to a year ago and why I would have had the Raiders go receiver. I don't know if I was just thinking like best available there at that slot or what. But I do think that Higgins definitely has been better than Ruggs. I feel like he had some pretty good chemistry with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati in real life, and I think he would have been definitely better than Ruggs in Oakland. I think him and Judy definitely would have been a great young combination out there for Derek Carr. I think their offense could have done some awesome stuff, but I'm not sure why I would have had the Raiders make that pick last year. Definitely wouldn't have turned out badly, but I think looking at this board, there's a couple other guys down the way that might have made more of an impact. They already had Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah. At pick 20 now, the Jaguars, I had them in this mock draft taking Patrick Queen. We know they took Chase on. I would have been a much bigger fan of Queen on the team. I feel like if you have Queen, you don't really have as big of a need for Schobert, so you can kind of get rid of him. And Queen's more athletic anyways. He would have fit this new defense better. So I still like Queen. I think he's going to be a good player. I wish I'd done this pick here, to be honest, but obviously Chason, he went earlier, and at the time we thought Chason was going to be a good pick for him. But this brings us now to pick 21 for the Philadelphia Eagles. So Connor, you had some embarrassing moments earlier in this mock draft, but you end up doing the right thing here to take Justin Jefferson to the Eagles.
This is what the Eagles wish they had done in real life.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, just think of the ramifications. Like, is it possible that if they have Jefferson, is Carson Wentz still on the team? I mean, What do you think about that?
It
Like,
is interesting to think about that because, obviously, for people who don't know, in real life, Jefferson was here. They took Jalen Reagor at this spot in real life, and Justin Jefferson went to the Vikings with the next pick. But, you know, in my opinion, it's one of those things because a lot of people have said, like, oh, like, would he have still had the same success with Carson Wentz? And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, it's not like, he had a much better quarterback throwing to him with, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. So, I know probably the biggest advantage, though, that he did have in Minnesota was that he was playing opposite of Adam Thielen. So, you've got a number one receiver that's already drawing coverages, and, they have to focus on him so Jefferson could get more targets. Yeah, I don't. I think he would have been good for the Eagles. Like I said, I think that Carson Wentz maybe stays. I mean, even if it's not Wentz, I feel like Hurts would have had more success than he did. I think one of them would have had more success than they did. Like I said, not necessarily saying that Wentz would stay if Jefferson went there, but it's, I don't think he puts up potential, because he put up potential rookie of the year stats. Like, had it not been for obviously Justin Herbert, Jefferson was the runner up for rookie of the year. So, I don't think he would have put up those kinds of numbers, but I say he still breaks 1,000 yards, and he could get, like 9 or 10 touchdowns. So, and of course, I think one thing that helped him, that the Eagles do have, that would have still helped him too, is that, obviously the Vikings also have Dalvin Cook, but the Eagles, I think a lot of people forgot that they actually have a really good running game. The problem is they just didn't use it at all because they were getting behind so early in games that they weren't able to get Miles Sanders involved. So I think it would have been really good for the Eagles. Like I said, I'm not saying that Wentz stays. There's a possibility, but one of those two between Wentz or Hurts would have had a much better season because of it.
yeah. And they wouldn't have had to go Devontae Smith this year with him. Like that,
Right.
they've done
Like
2 years now in a row taking a receiver first round. So
right. So they probably could have gone with something like, gotten some defense or an offensive lineman at that spot, this time around, rather than, like you said, Devontae Smith.
And then we'll kind of move through these ones a little bit quicker. But here at pick 22, Connor, you had the Vikings taking AJ Terrell. Obviously, they would have preferred Jefferson, who they got.
I mean, they probably that, and they probably would have preferred Antoine Winfield.
Yeah,
because I remember a lot of mocks actually had them taking Xavier McKinney at this spot of safety. So I'm sure they would have preferred Antoine Winfield.
yeah. At pick 23 here, Nate, your Patriots. You made the pick for your Patriots here, and you took what's his first name? Kenneth Murray. The linebacker who was from Oklahoma, and he ended up going in the same spot to the Chargers. So you must have been pretty mad when they made this trade. I don't remember what the Patriots gave up, but how do you feel about this now, looking back?
Yeah, so I still feel like personally I would like them to take a linebacker in that spot. They traded down in real life to pick Kyle Duggar out of Lenore Ryan in the second round. I think
remember that. I was like, "What? Where is this guy from?" Like, what?
Yeah, even as a Pats fan, I couldn't believe that pick. But I think he'll pan out and have a good career. But I still feel like if they could have gotten either Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen at that spot, I guess Queen was already off the board, which is why I went Murray. That makes sense. But if they could have gotten one of those linebackers, I think that would have been more of an impact. Just especially looking back last year with Dante Hightower sitting out and all that stuff. I think that would have been a better value selection there.
Yeah. Moving down here, the Saints, who had a terrible draft this year, I had them taking AJ Epinesa, the edge rusher there, and in real life they took Cesar Ruiz. At pick 25, the Minnesota Vikings, Connor had them taking Laviska Shenault. In real life, they traded back and took Jeff Gladney. I'm glad they didn't take Shenault here because.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think if they don't get Jefferson in this scenario, I think Shenault at this spot is a good. I mean, Shenault had his moments last year.
Yeah,
so
he was good.
He's definitely not anywhere near the level of like Jefferson or even like CeeDee Lamb or someone, but he definitely had his moments. He could have been a good opposite to Adam Thielen. So I think the Vikings, they wouldn't be too upset with this, looking back, but obviously no Jefferson would suck.
Yeah. And then we had the Miami Dolphins. I had them taking Kristen Fulton. This was honestly a terrible reach because he didn't get drafted until like the third or fourth round in real life. I didn't realize that. He must have fallen significantly off people's boards, but in real life they took a corner named Igbenogany.
Yeah.
Igbeheman. I don't know. So I don't know too much
I'd
about
like
him.
forgotten about that. I was like, when I was putting the real picks in here, I was like, wait,
Igbeheman.
what? Like, what's this guy's name?
Yeah. And then at pick 27, the Seahawks. This is their last first round pick until the Jamal Adams trade. They took Ettore Gross Matos, and Nate, you had them picking here. In real life, this was another surpriser. They took Brooks. Can't even remember his first name, honestly.
He was Jordan Brooks, I think.
Yeah, Jordan Brooks from Texas Tech. He's like a linebacker, I want to say.
Yeah.
But the Ravens at pick 28, they take Jalen Reagor. This is the reach here, I think. The Ravens, they in real life took Queen, but it would have been Chase Claypool would have been a way better receiver. Michael Pittman,
Brandon Ayuk,
second round picks. Yeah, Ayuk. A lot of better receiver selections later on in the draft that ended up going that would have been better than the Reagor pick. And then the Titans get Xavier McKinney instead of Isaiah Wilson, who played 4 snaps all of last season. So this pick is already better.
I'm pretty sure any pick in this spot would have been better than Isaiah Wilson.
Would have been better. It was basically like the league took away their first round pick. That's what happened last year. They got no production out of him, no trade. Really got nothing in the trade either. And then at pick 30 here, so this is interesting. This is the Packers here. So obviously in real life they traded up to 26 to get Jordan Love. In this mock draft, Connor had them taking Austin Jackson. Yeah, yes. That's what I thought. Yeah, Austin Jackson, the offensive lineman. So I know you were cringing earlier when I said his name to the Dolphins. He didn't have too good of a season.
Well, especially, like you said, like we were talking about before for the Ravens taking Raker, like the Packers could have easily taken Chase Claypool or Brandon Ayuk in this spot. And that would have, again, in this universe, making Aaron Rodgers happy. That would have made Aaron Rodgers happy. So.
He would have been a happy camper there. And then to round things out, the last two, pick 31, the 49ers. Nate had them taking Ruiz. In real life, they took Ayuk. I feel like Ayuk did really, really good for him last year with bad quarterback play. So they would rather have Ayuk. And then at pick 32 to round things out, I had them taking DeAndre Swift, the running back. So I got the running back part right. I just didn't think it would be Edwards-Helaire. I think for them, I do think Edwards-Helaire would have been better, but still James Robinson. I mean, nobody would have thought that.
Robinson was undrafted, so
he was. That would have been totally. Nobody would have thought. But
here's an interesting.
A guy like
what if they took Zach Moss in this spot, like a real power back in this spot here?
I mean, I think Dobbins. There were so many better.
Or Dobbins, that's true.
Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor. There were some good running backs. Swift wasn't a bad one. He did have that terrible drop in week 1. So after week 1, because Edwards-Helaire had that huge game in week 1 and Swift had that terrible drop. So things balanced out. I for the Chiefs though, I still think Edwards-Helaire would have been a good piece for what their offense is, but that will round out the top. But obviously they should have gone offensive line or something because that offensive line ended up being so bad
hindsight.
on the stretch.
In hindsight. I don't even know who they would have taken though, because they were all off the board in this spot.
Can't remember any good offensive linemen that went later. I'm sure there's some, but can't remember them off the top of my head. But anyways, guys, that's the 2020 Mock Draft 2.0 that Clutch Crew Sports did last year. And so we were just wanting to look back on that and see all the hypothetical picks that we had made. And definitely very interesting at the top, all the quarterback shuffling. And we'll be doing this again next year for the mock that we had just 2 weeks ago. So there you go. To wrap things up for the show, we're going to go around the hoop and talk about the new NBA play-in tournament. So to start things out, I'll just tell you guys how the play-in tournament works. So the way it works is you have the East and the West, obviously, 15 teams. The top 6 are just normal. You get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's where you're at. And then it's the 7 through 10 in the seedings that enter this play-in tournament, quote unquote, this play-in tournament, where 2 out of those 4 teams end up to go to the real playoffs. And then the real playoffs are how they have always been. The matchups are always like that. But what happens is the 7 plays the 8, and then that winner becomes the 7. And then you have the 9 and the 10 play, and then that winner plays the 7-8 loser, and then whoever wins that gets the 8. And rewind 10 seconds if you didn't get that all in one swoop. So basically, but it's an interesting format, and it's making it so that the 10 seed could potentially make the playoffs. So I'll ask Connor first, if you're a fan of this, if there's something you would change about it. Do you think this is what they should do moving forward, or get rid of it? What's your opinions of it, before we get on to talk about some of the potential games?
I mean, for me, I think for this season it looks okay, given where all the teams are at right now. But in my opinion, I feel like this could be a problem in the future if they keep doing it. I mean, I can just use last year as an example. You have, it could be a problem for the 7 seed or teams that are already in the past it was always just top 8. It can be a problem for like the 7 seed or the 8 seed, because if you look at last year, in the bubble, you had, by the time we got to the end of the season in the Western Conference, you had the Dallas Mavericks were the 7 seed. They were 8 games ahead of the Trailblazers in 8th, and they were only 1 game behind the Jazz in 6th. And it's like, okay, you're going to take this team that is 8 games ahead of the 8th seed, and you're going to make them have to play in a play-in tournament. Like, I think that's kind of garbage. Like, you shouldn't. That team, they worked hard all season. They should get in. Like I said, I think in the Eastern Conference, especially this year, it looks okay, because a lot of these teams are bunched up, especially the Hornets, Wizards, and Pacers. Like, they're all separated by 2 games. If the Celtics start to win some of their last games, they might get a little upset. But I think in the future, this should more so be something, if they're going to do it. I don't know how they would do this, honestly, with only 3 teams. But it seems to me it's only the 8 through the 10 that really should be a part of it. Because again, I feel like every year we always have this where the 7 seed starts to break away. And I feel like that's really unfair to the 7 seed, especially, like I said, with the case of the Mavericks in last year, or even last year in the Eastern Conference with, the Magic were the 8 seed and they were 8 games ahead of the Wizards, who were the 9 seed. So I don't like the idea of punishing these teams that are, because it is punishing them in a way. They've worked so hard, they're 8 games ahead, and you're going to say, oh, no, never mind. You have to play in this play-in tournament, and, for all you could get eliminated. You have a bad game. So I think it's okay for this year, obviously, because of COVID and all the extra things going on. I think it's okay, but going forward, I would not be a fan of this. I feel like it's punishing the 7 and 8 seeds.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I feel like the NBA is having a shorter season, that they're having less games this year, so that makes it a little bit more acceptable. But if they go back to
right, like you said, because you don't know what would have happened in those 10 other games that they eliminated.
Yeah, so if you go back to the regular pre-COVID schedule, I don't think this is necessary, because kind of like you said, it's kind of, we kind of know the better teams, and it's still punishing because even if they win, they're coming into their next game with having less rest than they normally would have. So even if it's easy, I have no doubt the Magic would have beaten the Wizards in that situation, but then they have more games played than the Bucks do, and obviously they were already going to lose that, we know, but they're at more of a disadvantage. Here's the thing I'll say is I do like the idea of this, but I would like it, I think, even more if they just had a shorter regular season. Go to like go to a schedule where you really don't even need divisions at this point. You just have East and West, and just play every team in the NBA twice, one home, one away game, 58 games, and then do something like this. And then I feel like that would be a better alternative, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I kind of agree with you on the getting rid of the divisions thing because, I didn't actually know this. I just kind of assumed that it was true, but it actually is the case in the end. The NBA is the only one of the big four where this is the case, that like you can win your division but still miss the playoffs. Like if you're the 9 seed and like, yeah, I mean, which, the Magic, I know the Wizards were way behind, but say that was like the Bulls in that spot and the Bulls were really close and the Magic ended up finishing like one game behind the Bulls and the Bulls got the 8. Even though the Magic were still the best team in the Southeast, they still don't make it. And listen, I didn't know that because I know like in the NHL, in the NFL, and in the MLB, if you win your division, that's a guaranteed spot. But it's not the case in the NBA. So
and
I would be
and it's also too, isn't it like a guaranteed home playoff game? Like
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
So
in the
that's
in
another
all,
difference
yeah,
too.
right. In all three of those sports, it is a guaranteed home because the NHL does because I will say, well, the NHL, they used to do it the way the NBA did with like the top 8 from each
Conferences,
conference, but ever since they switched to 4 divisions, now they have it where it's like the top 3 teams in each division automatically get spots, and then like the other 2 are just at large bids from the conference. So and yeah, their playoffs are like I know like the Hurricanes a couple seasons ago, we were I think we were overall in points. Like in terms of the Metropolitan, we were in 4th, but had we been in the Atlantic, we would have been like 2nd. But going into the playoffs, since we had that wild card spot, instead of being the 5 seed per se, we were still the 7 seed. So, but yeah, that sounds like an interesting idea. Hadn't thought about something like that, but that would be
just because the regular season, I think, has to be such a grind. Like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
really not much when you have, especially the 82 game schedule that they have. It's like spread out. It's so taxing. So many injuries and everything. I think if you have a shortened season and then you have every team play every team twice, so you get a home game and a road game for every team, then then it's true fairness across the board on your schedule and all. But
so if that's the case, then would you want to do seeding not based on conference? Well, that's my question to you then, is that if that was going to be the case, then would you think that you would need to actually, instead of play 2 games against every team, but would you think maybe you need to play more games against teams in your conference? Because if that's the case, then I feel like you just eliminate conferences at that point, and it's like it's just we seed them based on record at that point.
I still don't. I do think that it's tough to say because like you don't want to. I don't, at least for me anyways. I wouldn't want to see like Lakers Celtics in the first round. That just seems weird. And then if you get like a finals between, I don't know, like Denver and Utah or something like that, like it just, I don't know. I do kind of like how it's the East winner versus the West winner. I feel like it's maybe something where the games that you play in the East are worth more than they are in the West.
Or it could be something where like, I mean, you could add, say, like an extra game against every team of your conference, and that like maybe you just rotate every year, like home and away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, well, kind of like how the NFL's planning to do with like Week 17, right? How it's going to be this year all the AFC teams are going to be home, and then next year it's going to be all the NFC teams are going to be home, something like that. So it's like if like say the Lakers and Warriors, like they play they have their home and away game, and then like say this year the Lakers are the home team, but then like next year the Warriors are the home team for that third game.
Yeah. So you're saying the Lakers but then are you saying the Lakers and Warriors play every year and that switches or?
Yeah, like if you're gonna go by this format, so like you
Yeah.
play.
Okay. I see. I got
Yeah,
you. I got you now. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is interesting to think about stuff, but let's take a look at the potential.
Too bad Eric's not here. I wonder what he would think about this.
I'm sure he probably has an opinion. We'll find out when he listens. Taking a look at some of the potential matchups. We'll start with your Hornets here. They're the 8 right now. They would play the 7 with the Celtics. Obviously, the big advantage is to be the 7 or the 8. And I assume that the lower seed, the better team will get the home court advantage here in these games. But with that being said, you still want to be the 7 or the 8, so you have 2 chances. I think the Hornets, Boston is really slumping right now. They're on a losing streak. I feel like even though Charlotte's also kind of average right now, I think that's a good matchup for them. I think they'd be pretty happy playing the Celtics. And then also, too, between the Wizards and Pacers, I feel like those teams are also beatable. I think the Hornets, out of these 4 teams here, are the most, I would say, like the highest percent to make the playoffs. Obviously, 2 will, but I would give the Hornets the best odds, in my opinion, to make it out of these 4. What do you think?
Well, if my only issue, well, I don't know if this is an issue, but like my only concern with the Hornets right now is like it's just the health problems, because you said the Celtics are banged up, like the Hornets are banged up right now. Like obviously Gordon Hayward hasn't played in over a month. Miles Bridges right now has COVID protocols that are keeping him out. Devontae Graham has been hurt on and off this year, so I don't know. I honestly probably wouldn't want to play out of all these teams. I mean, the Wizards would probably be the one I'd want to play the least, just because I feel like they're a little bit hotter. Because I remember at the start of the year we were talking about them like, oh man, the Wizards are so bad. Like
I know I made some joke about them that they were already out.
Right. So I mean, the Wizards, they've really been. I think also, I mean, Eric actually touched on this when we were talking about our fantasy basketball league. I think them having Russell Westbrook actually play in all the back-to-backs has really helped them a lot. So I feel like they're probably the team I least want to play. But yeah, it's interesting. If we can get, I think mainly we just need to get Hayward back, because we got Ball back, which honestly we didn't think we were going to. Bridges will obviously be back. Like COVID protocols don't keep you out that long. Like he didn't actually test positive. He's just like, I think he might have been in contact with someone who did test positive, so they have to keep him out for however long. But if we can get Hayward back, I mean, the Hornets were going on a streak with Hayward without Devontae Graham. So I'm not worried about Graham being hurt, because Rozier's been playing out of his mind this year. So, and obviously Ball's been, had he not gotten hurt, Ball would have probably still been the front runner for Rookie of the Year. So, yeah, we need to get healthy before this. And if we do get healthy, then I will love our chances, because, at one point we were the top team in our division. We were beating the Hawks. We were beating the Heat. We even had a victory over the Bucks, not their practice squad, which we had at one point. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the Hornets, if they can get healthy, they can match up with anyone. If not, then I'd say if you say the Hornets have the best chance, if they're healthy, I give them the best chance. If they're not healthy, I give the Wizards the best chance to come out of this.
Yeah. I will say my reasoning for that too is that, like, obviously if you're the 9 or 10, you have to win 2. It's because I think the Wizards will move up to that 8th spot, and then they can beat the Celtics and get in. Okay, I see. Let's take a look at the West now. So at 7, you have the Lakers. At 8, you have the Warriors. 9, the Grizzlies, and 10, the Spurs. Things can obviously change, but right now we're seeing a potential Lakers versus Warriors as the 7-8. The winner becomes the 7, and then the loser goes to face the winner of Memphis and San Antonio. Between Memphis and San Antonio, honestly, I think Memphis if Memphis does win that, then I think that 8 seed game becomes a real game. But if it's San Antonio, San Antonio's not going to get the 8 seed.
Yeah, I don't think. I
So
mean, depending, or even if they fall out and the Pelicans move into it, like, I mean, especially, I mean, that's looking pretty unlikely now because obviously Zion got hurt. But yeah, I think the Spurs are kind of like the pretender in this group. Like, they're just kind of here, you know, maybe keep that dream alive of going back to the playoffs again. But
their
not
playoff streak got snapped last year, so they don't even have to act
so. Right, so it's like I think they're just kind of here, just, you know, we're here, don't forget about us.
yeah. But between the Lakers and Warriors, this would be such a good game to see, I feel like. And if you're, let's say, the 2 seed, I guess Phoenix right now, who would you want to play? Would you rather have the Lakers or Warriors? Like, because the Lakers have the health issues, but a hot Steph Curry, like, I don't know.
I mean, it's so hard just to, like, you know, honestly, I mean, it's so weird talking about this because, you know, we all expected the Lakers to be atop the Western Conference right now at this point in the season. You know, we all had them. I mean, literally, I mean, Nate made his pick too. Like, out of the 4 of us, you know, we all had them in the finals, and 3 of the 4 of us had them winning the finals. So, it's a really interesting scenario for the Lakers to be down here. But I will say, I mean, they proved I would still want to face the Warriors if I'm Phoenix, because the Lakers, to me, the other night when they handled Utah. Like, if they can do that, that scares me, especially with LeBron not even playing. Like, if AD is back in his form and he's back to, you know, where he was before, the Lakers are a very, very scary team that, you know, shouldn't even be in this spot, honestly. So, I mean, I'm not going to say the Warriors don't have a chance to take them down, but if I'm Phoenix, you know, and if this actually happens this way, I'm literally hoping and praying that the Warriors win this game. And then if I'm the Jazz, I'm hoping and praying the Grizzlies can somehow find a way to beat the Lakers, because the Lakers are the team that I think no one wants to face because they're not where they should be. They're just here because of all the injuries.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't think, like, with all the injuries and everything, like stuff happening to LeBron, because the rest of the Lakers, other than AD and LeBron, are terrible. I knew that before, but
Kuzma.
after watching their game against Portland, they were terrible, especially early on. None of them could nobody could make a shot except for AD. Like, he had like 35 points. Nobody else contributed, it felt like. Yeah, Kyle Kuzma was terrible. I know they've got injuries, but still, like,
yeah. Well,
the Lakers.
It's just one of the things for me is, like, they need to. I mean, really, probably the biggest disappointment for them. I mean, I know Harold didn't play in that game, you know, and Schroeder's hurt, but, like, really, Drummond's been a huge disappointment for them. Remember how we were saying how, like, that could really help them, like, in this tough time? Like, he's been a huge disappointment.
He fouled out in that game too.
Right,
he with, like, 2 points.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, I think they kind of, unfortunately, like, if Drummond can't find his game, then it will be tough for them, especially if they can't get healthy. Because I thought, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, like, even if someone's hurt, like, you know, Drummond's kind of like that next piece, and, you know, he's really, like, he can step up and be there. But Drummond has been a major disappointment. So I don't know. You're definitely right about the health issues, but it's, you know, again, if I'm these other teams, I'm like, man, I sure hope they're not fully healthy, because watch out if they are.
Yeah, and then you might see a case where you want to be the 3 seed to play Portland instead of the Lakers, you know. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? That could help Portland out, because they play some of those potential 3 seeds who might want to play Portland, and then, you know, we'll see. But yeah, that's gonna wrap things up on this episode, guys. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll be back next week with a full NBA playoff preview episode. So stay tuned for that. And until then, remember, be clutch.
Bye.
For Eric, peace.